So as ISIS continues to rip apart the country of Iraq, spreading death, terror, and mayhem, our own homegrown bringer of despair has also returned to spread his own brand of terror.
Former Vice President Dick Cheney thinks so. He thinks we are in danger because of this lack of leadership or the delay of game in making decisions, and he joins us right now. Mr. Vice President, you got to admit, though, complicated situation when it comes to Iraq now.
Right.
ISIS, bad. Iran, bad. All with different objectives. The Mahdi army, Shia, bad. We're the good guys.
Yes, everybody's bad, but where are the good guys? Where are the good guys? Well, certainly not in that room. And yes, you've seen right, Dick Cheney is back, and somehow the media and everyone else has been forced into hearing his bullshit opinion on Iraq. So, let's hear a little bit more of that bullshit opinion, then we can tear it apart.
The Rand Corporation just recently published a study that shows there's been a 58% increase in the number of al-Qaeda-type terrorist groups in the last 4 years. 58%, doubling in the number of terrorists. So the whole problem of terrorism is difficult because of the proliferation of it. And the other problem, of course, is the developing possibility that sooner or later some of them will get their hands on deadlier weapons.
Are you indicating, in fact, that we could be on path, or we are on track for something worse than 9/11?
I think that's a possibility. And, you know, I can't say specifically at this point when something like that might happen, but it'd be foolish for us to ignore the extent to which there are people who, terror-sponsoring states who have, in fact, tried to provide nuclear technology.
And your worry is, even though what's going on in Iraq is way over there, that they bring it here because a lot of those people, the terrorists, have American passports. You know, in a couple of months, one of them could be walking in front of our building with some sort of gizmo to wreak havoc.
Here we have Dick Cheney once again talking about nuclear weapons. Now, where have we heard that before? Oh, right. When he was talking about Iraq originally having weapons of mass destruction and saying that eventually Iraq was going to have a nuclear weapon. So yes, Dick Cheney once again pushing for war and warning about terrorists and nuclear weapons. Either Dick Cheney has forgotten about the mess he caused, or I have somehow gone back in time. Now, he's not the only idiot that got everything wrong about Iraq, and yet is somehow still allowed on TV.
Paul Wolfowitz, what do you do then as a policy matter now to stop this?
Look, it's a complicated situation. You don't just come up with, we're going to bomb this or we're going to do that. We have to convince people in that region, Kurds, Iraqis. Maliki is a big part of the problem. He's not all of Iraq. We need to find people there, and most importantly, I would say, in Syria, where U.S. policy and absence over the last 3 years has sent a signal of lack of seriousness throughout the region. I would do something in Syria. It's a bad situation. It's now dominated by Assad and by ISIS. We should be finding people fighting both.
We keep coming back to the idea that somehow military intervention, Dexter, is somehow going to make the situation better. We have a lot of experience of U.S. forces in Iraq failing to produce the kind of outcome that we thought was going to materialize.
Paul Wolfowitz was the man that said the Iraq war would pay for itself. Now, I've got a deficit chart that will actually show otherwise. So he says that in order to do something about ISIS, we have to do something about Syria? Wait, what? Syria. Going into Syria. Syria, Esley? I know. Bad pun. But it sounds like another bad idea from a neocon idiot. I don't know. Do you agree, Sean? Do you disagree?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously we're in a very serious situation over there.
Indeed.
And no, of course I don't agree. Dick Cheney in another clip, and not that one that we showed, he actually said that he would send 20,000 soldiers back into Iraq because the American people really, really want to send troops back into Iraq to die for that country. It's a total disaster. What Dick Cheney didn't say, or what they didn't tell, what Dick Cheney didn't say, Mr. 4 times as many Al-Qaeda, or whatever number that he used from a certain period of time, is that there were no Al-Qaeda in Iraq before his war. Like, they did not exist. Saddam Hussein was Sunni, but he was a more secular Sunni, so he actually hated Al-Qaeda. Like, we destroyed the balance in that country that I mean, Saddam Hussein wasn't a good guy, but we destroyed the balance in that country, and now, like, the natural 1,300 years of imposing forces are, like, coming to, like, fruition. Like, the Kurds have their own country now. Like, it's not called Kurdistan yet, but it will be. Like, the Kurds have their own country. We should just leave them alone. They don't seem to have a problem with us in general. We shouldn't piss them off. The Sunnis are going to take over the Sunni territory, and the Shiites are going to go with Iran, and they're going to take a lot of the weapons that we gave the Iranian government. A lot of the weapons that, by the way, haven't already fallen into ISIS hands because we left the weapons depots in Sunni territory, and they have it. So it's a disaster, and Dick Cheney should shut up. And if you're on Fox News and Elizabeth Hasselbeck with the weak sauce question of all time, or the most like fraudulent question of all time, that if we don't do something over there, is it possible that we could have another 9/11? Like, anytime somebody says we have to do something to prevent another 9/11, except this time it will be a worser one, they're either in the movie Team America World Police or lying to you.
Excellent. And by the way, we're not done. We have one more asshat as well to cover.
I mean, it is a disaster. Donna's right. It's a disaster, unfortunately, made possible, or certainly made more likely, by our ridiculous and total withdrawal from Iraq in 2011. President Obama said 2 days before Election Day in 2012, Al-Qaeda's on the path to defeat. The war in Iraq is over. That was enough to get him reelected. But how does it look today? Al-Qaeda's on the path to defeat. The war in Iraq is over. Neither is true, and it's a disaster for our country. Look.
And here we get to the lesson. If you helped break it, you can always blame it on the black guy. And still, the mainstream press will listen to you. Just like Bill Kristol, Paul Wolfowitz, and Dick Cheney. Now, as far as my suggestion is that if you are so completely and utterly wrong about a specific topic, stop going on TV to talk about the very thing that you were wrong about. And if you're Dick Cheney, you should just generally shut the fuck up.
Well, I mean, to be fair to us, we obviously don't understand these guys. Their third time's a charm doctrine, because it didn't work invading Iraq in the 90s. It didn't work invading Iraq in the 2003. But this time it will totally work if we re-invade. We'll totally unite the three sectarian factions that hate each other and have hated each other for 1,300 years. This time we're just going to, sprinkle a little American freedom in the form of bombs, and they'll just be like, oh, we'll coexist. They'll all have those bumper stickers. It'll be awesome.
Exactly. That's what they're... Man, it's amazing that we give so much time, so much airtime to people who are absolutely 100% wrong. And it's funny because even though there are actual facts to show them how wrong that they are, they will double down. Cheney's like, yeah, we did the absolute right thing going into Iraq. I wouldn't change it for a minute. No, because you got fucking rich off of it.
And by the way, Dick Cheney's administration, the Bush administration, which, by the way, credit to George W. Bush for painting and not talking about this, but the Bush administration signed the Status of Forces Agreement that led us to our withdrawal in 2011, and Barack Obama fought against the withdrawal. Like, he fought tooth and nail, and I say the Iranians, the Iraqi president, Maliki threw us out. Mm-hmm. Like, so they're even wrong about that. Like, yeah, he's a warmonger just like you. He just couldn't get out of the agreement that you stuck him with.
Right. He wanted to stay longer, but there were specific rules that we wanted, basically, so our troops couldn't get punished under their law. And since, and it's a very sensible thing to pull out if they're not going to agree to those rules. So that's why President Obama pulled the troops out, left Iraq, and then he, spun it to declare victory. And said, look at that, I got us out of Iraq. No, you didn't, actually. Right. You did, but you wanted to stay.
And we're going to have to accept the fact that this is going to change. Iraq and Syria are going to change into 3 countries eventually. Like, we're going to have Kurdistan in the north, we're going to have Iraq, and we're going to have Philadelphia. Because it's always Sunni in Philadelphia.